Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. My teacher tip is about the first couple weeks of school, where you want to play some activities and games with your students to get to know them better. And so, the activity I wanted to share with you is one that I really enjoy, especially I've seen that the students really enjoy it too, getting to know each other and getting to know their classmates. And it's called Would You Rather? And so I'm going to bring up some of my Google slides that I've used in my classroom. And I have four different sets. I usually do 10 to 15 slides. So I'm going to bring that up for you so you can see what that looks like. Okay. First of all, let me share my screen. Okay, there we go. Would you rather? All right, so I'm going to go into presentation mode. Okay, so I just start off with my explanation slide here. Move me to the bottom. Okay, so I first have the directions for Would You Rather. Each slide contains two different options. If you agree with the option on the right, move to the right of the room. If you agree with the left, move to the left side of the room. So it's pretty easy and self-explanatory. I've used this Would You Rather activity with high school, although you could adjust it for elementary if you would like. Okay, so let's go to the first slide. Would you rather? So this is the first, and I put this up on my smartboard. Would you rather go into the past and meet your ancestors, or go into the future and meet your great grandchildren? Now, it's always really funny to hear students kind of discuss with their friends why they would pick that. Oh, it'd be really cool to meet my great grandma, or oh yeah, I'm not interested in meeting my my grandchildren. But that it's the most interesting to hear them discuss it. Okay. Would you rather have a rewind button or have a pause button? This is really funny. I have some girls who will say, "Oh man, I if I could just pause myself," or "Oh yeah, if I could just rewind something that I said to somebody, I would rather do that." Anyway, so it's really interesting to see how many of them pick either or, and how many of the students. Because I very rarely have had everybody go to one side. There's always like a handful that will pick one of the other options. Okay, next one. Would you rather be stuck on a broken ski lift or be stuck in an elevator? Now, some might not know what a ski lift is, so there's that discussion. But that's always really interesting, especially when some students will say, with who's in the elevator or who's on the ski lift. Anyway, I just say it's up to you. You decide. Okay, next one. Would you rather be the smartest student in the school or be the most popular student in school? This is really, really fascinating to me because, as you're getting to know them and you see which one they pick, and then they start talking about why. So that's always interesting. Okay, would you rather go deep sea diving or go bungee jumping? Now, the discussion that always comes up with is, well, I don't know how to swim, or I'm scared of sharks. But that comes up. And then, of course, bungee jumping, some will say, I'm scared of heights. So I really like hearing their discussion. Next one, explore the ocean or explore space. Now, I've had students ask, well, explore the ocean on a ship or a boat, or, am I swimming? Or again, you decide. You decide how you're exploring. And then I'll have some say, oh, that would be really fascinating. And then other students will say, well, what if your shuttle explodes? Or and again, it's really fascinating to hear what their comprehension is of these things, and just the things that they worry about or the things that they're fearless about? Okay. Would you rather have X-ray vision or have magnified hearing? And I've had some students say, "Oh, I don't want to know what people are saying about me." Or X-ray vision, you see that light go on with some students about what that means. Next one, would you rather have a cook or have a maid? And I've actually had some students say, "Well, that actually sounds like my mom." But or even some students will say, "Well, I already know how to cook." But so that's always really, really interesting to hear. Because some will say, "Well, I don't need a maid. I'm pretty clean myself." So that's fun. Next one, would you rather live at the top of an apartment building in New York City or live on the top of a mountain? Oh, there's a typo. I need to fix that. Okay. I gotta bring that back up. There we go. Okay, let's do that again. Okay. Would you rather? Oh my gosh. Okay. Take three. Would you rather live at the top of an apartment building in New York City or live on the top of a mountain? That's really interesting. Next one. Would you rather spend the day with your favorite athlete or spend the day with your favorite movie star? And I think that this is really funny because some will say, "Well, I don't have a favorite athlete," or they don't have a favorite movie star. But there's that discussion where the kids start talking about, "Well, what about this or that person?" Um, and again, that's really revealing to see if the kids are watching movies or if they watch sports. And so that's a fun way to get to know them with that question. Okay, so this question is really interesting. Would you rather live at the top of an apartment building in New York City or live on the top of a mountain? Now, some people will have a discussion about, well, if I'm on a mountain, they get really detailed in their thoughts and decision making process. Even with being in the city, some kids don't want to be in the city, or they would love to be in the city. So that's a really fun question. Next one, would you rather spend the day with your favorite athlete or spend the day with your favorite movie star? Now, this is kind of funny because you'll see if students like to watch movies or if they don't like to watch movies, or if they're into sports or not. But some kids will start saying, "Well, what about this person or that person, that actor, that athlete?" And so that's a fun discussion to hear. Obviously, if you teach elementary kids, then you might want to talk about maybe some cartoons or other characters, but that's a fun question. Next one, would you rather have the best house in a bad neighborhood or have the worst house in a good neighborhood? So this is funny because if they're familiar with where they live and other surrounding neighborhoods, or maybe they visited relatives, that's kind of a fun question because I've had students who'd say, "Well, I want to have the worst house in a good neighborhood because that way I know nobody's going to break into my house." Or you have some students say, "Well, if I have the best house in a bad neighborhood, then I'm going to have to worry about people breaking in." So that's a really funny conversation to hear amongst the students. Next one, would you rather be stuck on a train or be stuck on a bus? And some people will say, "Oh, well, I don't want to be stuck on a bus. Or I don't even want to take the bus." And if they've never been on a train, then they may not really fully comprehend that experience. But either way, that's how you can get to know them and what they've experienced so far. Next question, would you rather have more time or have more money? And I've had students say, well, if I have more time, then that would give me an opportunity to make more money. And then some would, argue, well, that's not necessarily true. You can do more with money if you have money now. But really lively discussion. And then I have my slide that concludes that set of slides. Okay, so here I have a second set of slides, and this would usually be for my second week of school. So the school that I taught at last year, we had a block schedule on Tuesday and Thursday. So, and that class was longer. And so I did this Would You Rather activity on Tuesdays and Thursdays, just to kind of help break things up. And so anyway, this is my second set of slides. And by now the kids already know, but sometimes we got new students, so I still have the slide with the instructions. Okay, so the first question, would you rather team up with Wonder Woman or team up with Captain Marvel? And this is really funny to hear, but on this one, most of the class in several of my classes chose Captain Marvel. So I thought that was interesting. If you're a DC or Marvel fan, or maybe you would want to change this out with something else. Would you rather see 10 minutes into the future every day or see 150 years into the future once? And that was really funny too. I had some students who thought, well, I don't really care about 150 years from now. They care about now. So I love having conversations with students. And also too, as you're asking these questions to students, this really gets 100% participation. Now, if you notice a student is just standing in the corner for all of the questions, I will usually, for each question, respond to a couple of students at a time. This also helps to reinforce their names. So I will, because I try to memorize their names the first couple of days of school. So by saying their names, as you engage with them in this activity, that helps to reinforce that too. And then you just say, oh, so you like this and you like that? Because last time you were there, and and you get them to kind of talk through that. Next one, would you rather sing along to your favorite song or dance to your favorite song? And this is funny because a lot of kids didn't like to sing, but they like to dance. And so I thought that was fun to see. And some will say what their favorite songs are or whatnot. And it really gets them talking amongst themselves. I love that. Next one, would you rather find true love today or win the lottery next year? And I thought that this was really fun to see, because you would think that it's mostly girls, I guess, who would pick, oh, true love. But I actually had some classes where it was more boys than the girls. I found that fascinating. I thought, okay, so the girls are all about the money and the boys are about love in this class. But it's super fun. And of course, kids want to know what you would choose. So I would move from side to side too to play the game as well. Next one, would you rather be 11 feet tall or 9 inches tall? And it is funny because I think majority of the students would like stop to think about 11 feet tall, 9 inches tall. And then just that debate, because this one actually stumped quite a few students where they thought a little bit longer than the other questions. And so that's funny. Would you rather only communicate with emojis or never text again? Now, which one do you think most chose? That's right. They chose only communicate with emojis because they couldn't survive not being able to text again. But that was pretty funny to hear which emojis they would use the most. Okay, next one. Would you rather never be able to go out during the day or never be able to go out at night? And a lot of the kids wanted to go out at night. So I thought that that was really interesting. I guess not surprising that kids are night owls. Once upon a time, I was a night owl. Just kidding. I guess it depends, but that's really fun. When I said, I would I would rather never be able to go out at night, they were like, "What? Why?" Okay, would you rather cuddle a koala or pal around with a panda? It's funny how some of the kids are discussion about, I don't want to be with a koala. They have sharp claws, or a panda could eat me anyway. It was funny to hear, where did you get that information, or what made you think that? But anyways, next, would you rather spend a week in the forest or spend the night in a cemetery? Mm-hmm. Well, some of the kids talked about all the bugs in the forest, et cetera, and not scared of the cemetery, and others were scared of the cemetery. And then they would talk about the scary movies that they've seen. Would you rather spend a year at war or spend a year in prison? Now, this was really fascinating. Believe it or not, most of the students chose prison over war. So we had a little bit of a conversation about that. I thought that was interesting. Only a small number chose war, and it was boys and girls. Would you rather be able to take back anything you say or hear anything that is said about you? This is so funny. I had quite a few people say, well, sometimes I say things that I wish I could take back, which to me is really interesting to learn about them. And then, of course, there were some who were like, yeah, that would be really interesting to hear what people say. And then talk about, okay, but how would that affect you once you know what they said? Anyways, of course, we'll talk about fighting, right? You can't just let that go once you know what somebody said about you. And the kids would talk about that. Would you rather solve world hunger or solve global warming? And this was actually, I was really surprised to hear how some of the students are really environmental activists, the way they would talk about global warming. And then those who would talk about world hunger. It was just a really interesting conversation. Again, depending on what your subject area is, the reason why these questions are fun is because when would that come up in your class? Would you rather spend a year alone or spend a year without a home? This was interesting because I was curious to see what kids would choose. And there were actually a small percent that chose to be alone. I thought, wow. And then, of course, majority would say, well, as long as I'm with my family, it doesn't really matter. Would you rather talk like Yoda or breathe like Darth Vader? And people chose breathe like Darth Vader. was the majority. Just a few would want to talk like Yoda. And then, of course, there were those that said they didn't like Star Wars. What? Okay, so that's the end of that group of slides. And going to week 3 and having the introductory slide again. All right, would you rather take a 1-week trip to the foreign country of your choice? I guess that limits what knowledge students have of other countries. Or take a 4-week trip across the United States. Now, I always have both maps up of a world map and a map of the United States. So a lot of times the kids would just walk over to the map and start looking, and that would help them with making their decision. Now, really, kids should only be taking, between 5 to 10 seconds, depending on how large your class is, to make the decision and move. These are not meant to be debates or anything like that. So I usually will have a timer up too if I think that some students are taking a little too long to make up their mind. But in some cases, it was kind of even, or more of traveling for a week in a foreign country of their choice. Would you rather play on a sports team that always wins but always has to play in the rain, or play on a sports team that plays in sunny weather but also always loses? Well, this is interesting, but majority of the students chose to be on a winning team. There was only a small number that chose to be on a losing team, but would rather play in sunny weather. So and it's funny because some of the students would say to this group, "You would rather be a loser? What?" Okay, next one. Would you rather have a friend that was really fun to be with, but not very nice, or have a friend who is kind of boring, but also very kind? This was a really fascinating conversation too. Okay, I got to be honest, they were all really fascinating conversations, but this was really interesting because there were and that kind of gave me a glimpse into what kind of friends they have, right? Who they hang out with. The kids who just, they're all about fun. They don't really care if that person's nice or not. Versus the group. And when I look at that group and later on as I get to know them, that makes sense. I see it. Would you rather eat pizza every day for lunch or eat a cheeseburger every day for dinner? Now, if I had vegetarians in class, I would just say, okay, then just make that a veggie pizza, and a soy burger or veggie burger or whatever, to make that to make that distinction for them, if they don't eat meat. But for this, it's kind of funny. But most of the time, it was even. Sometimes there are more who wanted to eat pizza. Okay, I guess it depends. And then some kids would talk about, but where, from where? And again, I tell them, it's up to you. Next one, would you rather be able to fly or be invisible? Okay. Now this was interesting to see who chose what. And then there'd be some who'd be off in the corner whispering as they were the group that chose to be invisible. But this was funny just to hear for those who would share, where they would fly to, or what kind of information they think that they could learn from being invisible. Okay, next one. Would you rather be given $1,000 right now or be given $50 a month for the rest of your life? And it's funny because some would stop and think, you could see them trying to do the math. Because some would choose, $1,000 right now. Oh, no, wait. No, I want $50 a month for the rest of my life. So it's up to you if you want to let kids switch places, or if you give them that 5-second count, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and wherever you're at is where you're at. Okay, would you rather be rich and famous and die young, or be poor and live forever? Now, if kids ask me, die young, what does that mean? Right? So you could specify before you turn 30 or before your 21st birthday. So you can decide what that means. And some people, some of my students would say, well, but if I live forever, then wouldn't I have the opportunity to make money? So very lively discussion. And again, I love hearing their questions, their comments, because it really helps me see. And if you have students that are really quiet, because as you do an activity similar to this over the semester or over the course of the year, it really, you see their personality come out, especially if they're typically quiet in class. So that's really fun. Okay. Would you rather have 10 siblings or have one sibling? And it's funny because I had one class where majority of the class chose to have one sibling, which I thought that's interesting. I did have, and so in that particular class, I had one student, and she was standing on this side, and she said because she has 8 brothers and sisters, and I thought, wow, that's amazing. And she said she wouldn't want to be without them, so I thought that was really cool. Okay, so that's the end of that third, and so we're on to my fourth set of slides. And first one, would you rather be a character in an action-packed thriller or be in a comedy? Now, this was really funny because then I had some girls ask me, well, can it be a rom-com? A romantic comedy? I thought, whatever kind of comedy you want, if that's what you want to be in, and that's up to you. And then of course the thrillers. It's so fun to hear them talk about, what kind of movies, and then give movies as an example. Would you rather be in an arranged marriage or be single forever? Now, I did have some students ask me, what is an arranged marriage? So explaining that. And it's funny because I did have one student that I remember where he said, can I trust my parents to make a good choice? That was hilarious. And then there were some who said they'd want to be single forever, but it was between the two. I mean, there were some that really had to do some thinking and then chose, well, I guess I could be single and have a friend, but just not married. So that was interesting. Would you rather be locked in an amusement park or be locked in a zoo? Now, majority of the kids chose amusement park, but it was fun to hear from the students that wanted to be in a zoo and talk about which animals they would love to be able to become friends with and make their pets. They're so funny. Too funny. Next one. Would you rather own a beach resort in a country of your choice or own a restaurant chain in the US? This actually, most classes, it was pretty close. And I think it's because, a lot of the students have their favorite restaurant that they like to go to. So I guess just thinking about owning that particular chain, or I found that the few that said own a beach resort in a country of your choice, because when I had asked students, oh, did you have a particular country in mind? And they would say some countries, and then I would ask, oh, have you been there? And most of the time they had not been there. But so that's really fun and interesting. And I feel like when you pose these questions, that's why I like quick write responses or to do for your bell work. Anything that gets them to think about things that they wouldn't typically think about, because a lot of times when they're in class, they're just thinking about the subject matter. And so that's what's really fun, to have activities like this, or, have them respond to a quick write that they have to really think about. Next one. Would you rather have your debt forgiven before your 30th birthday or be guaranteed good health for life? Now, at this age, it's a little hard for them to imagine what kind of debt they would have before their 30th birthday. So some said good health, but it was interesting to see some of the students talk about debt, like especially some of my older students that already had a job, and talking about loans and credit cards, and some even talking about student loans and having that debt. So again, a glimpse into what they already know is really interesting. And it really makes for a lively conversation, or even in your lessons to be able to bring in what students have talked about and said during this activity. Would you rather be a police officer or be an astronaut? There's actually a small number of students that wanted to be an astronaut. I'm not sure. And I would have some conversation, but sometimes students were not even really sure what that entailed versus like understanding what a police officer does. And they did bring up how the police nowadays are, they've been in the news for things that they're for corruption or things that they're not doing, which is a bum deal because there are some really excellent police officers out there. So that was really interesting. And then we would talk a little bit about space, especially because at the time there were SpaceX launching and different things like that in the news. So that's fun to talk about. Next one, would you rather be a star on a losing team or ride the bench on a winning team? Now, this was really interesting. And again, it's funny to hear what people know. So I would have some who would say, well, but even if I ride the bench on the winning team, we go to the championship, I'm still going to be a champion versus being, a loser and, being a star. So I thought that was interesting. Okay. So, sorry, going back to that. And then, of course, there were a few that would prefer to be the star. All right. Would you rather be in a survival reality show or be on a dating game show? Oh my gosh. That was really lively. So again, it tells me what they're watching as far as survival reality shows and dating shows. But a lot of the girls would talk and the boys would talk about, if we're on a dating show and this and that. Anyway, it's so funny. Next one, would you rather have nosy neighbors or noisy neighbors? And I had some students who would say, I already have nosy neighbors. But so you get to know a little bit about their neighbors. Would you rather stay the night in a luxury hotel in the city or go camping on a private beach? Now, some people said they didn't like camping, even though they like the beach part, but no, I would rather be in the luxury hotel. So I had a majority of students pick the hotel. And next, would you rather drink a protein shake with raw eggs or drink a smoothie with frozen ants? Either way, they thought that was both gross, but thought that maybe the raw egg would be less gross because of the texture of chewing on the frozen ants. But that was funny. Next one, would you rather be a tiger or be an eagle? Again, it's really funny. You never really know what kids are going to say, but they talk about being able to fly and what eagles eat versus tigers and what tigers eat. But that they're cool. So that was fun. Okay. And that was the end of that slide presentation. So I just wanted to share that with you and just kind of talk through it a little bit instead of just giving you a list. I thought it was really interesting and fun to see. It's really fun at the beginning of the school year, getting to know all of your students and getting to know their names, and then allowing them time to get to know each other. And so I really like this activity because, again, it's 100% participation. They move from side to side. Everybody's talking. So even if you don't have, or those students don't have any friends yet, they can start to make connections because of the things that they have in common. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope that was helpful. If you like this video, don't forget to like, click, subscribe to the channel and the notification bell so you don't miss a video, and also leave a comment. Let me know what else you'd like to see. And as always, remember, you've got this.